I went and watched your 80 days of making your album. I feel like you utilized all of the modern day tools and opportunities to connect with people and really let people in. I thought that was really, really cool.
The fastest I had been able to make an album was probably like 9 or 10 months, maybe. And so then I was like, 80 days. That's like insanity. And that includes the mix downs. That's crazy. But if you actually decide that music is your job, 80 days is long enough. It's easy. It's it's not easy, but it is plenty of time. You have to work a certain way to do an album in 80 days.
Welcome to another episode of A Path Unfolding. My guest today here is none other than Barclay Crenshaw. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good, man. How are you doing,
I'm
Jesse?
excellent, man. It's kind of a rainy day here in Austin, but I've been looking forward to this. As I was saying, I'm a fan of yours. I got to actually open up for you, and I think it was 2018, 17, 18, when you first had like your first Barclay Crenshaw album or EP put out, and you and Kill Smith played, and that was a lot of fun.
I just played with Kill Smith this past weekend, and I hadn't played with him in a minute at this crazy festival, like up in Maine,
Oh yeah, what was it?
Fam Fest.
Okay, cool.
Very hard to get to, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, Maine is no joke. You got to fly to
Yeah,
an airport and then drive for a while to get to anywhere that makes
yeah, for
sense.
sure.
Well, cool. Yeah, and I was saying I'm a big fan of your artwork. I'm actually wearing this shirt in Daniel Martin Diaz. I really love his work, and I've noticed that you keep going back to him. Um, yeah,
Yeah, he's really amazing.
right.
Um, I initially found him, and we pretty much haven't moved off of that look for since like the very beginning.
Yeah. I noticed I'm a huge Tool fan as well, and I think Pussifer utilized his artwork for their last album, which I thought, wow,
Ah,
yeah,
that's
he's definitely
interesting.
coming up in the world for sure. So
Yeah, he's been popping up everywhere.
I wanted to lay a little bit of groundwork for everybody, not stay on this too long, but let's just set the stage. You're, I think, probably most well known currently for your previous project, Claude Von Stroke, owner, founder of the infamous Dirtybird record label, and that's been for the last 20 something years you've been pushing and doing that. And just recently, I know you sold Dirtybird and then worked for them for a little bit, and then now you've just recently left totally, and now this year is all about Barclay Crenshaw. So does how is that feeling? How is that transition for you right now?
It's weird, very weird feeling. Something that I kind of associated my whole life with. I don't, I'm not involved with anymore. So that was kind of interesting transition for me mentally. But after about a year of that, and I just decided to kind of that me hanging around as like kind of an employee was not really, that's not really how I wanted to be. That's not how I do stuff usually.
Yeah.
I'm usually just like 100% or nothing. So I decided that it would be better if I just let those guys do their thing and rock it. And then I would step aside, and like there's a reason why I sold it. It wasn't like I was feeling so that I wanted to just keep listening to 600 house demos every week.
Yeah.
I actually did want to do something else. And so I did. Like that's what I'm doing. And I think the transition I thought maybe would be easier. It's been challenging. So like I I'm almost in like the self-sabotaging category. I'm like borderline self-sabotager. Like when I left, I'm like, I don't want any salary. I'm leaving. I'm not even going to sign my next project over here. I'm going to start like I'm going to burn everything to the ground and literally restart the whole thing from scratch. And that is beneficial, but it's also hard because you're like, there for so long, I was almost like a little baby where everyone's like, you're great. And now I'm back to like where everyone else is reality. You know what I mean?
Welcome
like,
back.
I'm
Welcome back.
starting an artist thing from scratch. Nobody knows what the fuck it is. It's gonna take years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like to say I have a friend who is in a group called Tritonal, and they've been like big EDM guys for a while, and then they just kind of have been starting a second project called Prana. And the joke I made is like, you kind of beat the boss, like you beat the game and you're starting over again, which, you know, it is, I think it's really brave of you. And I think, you know, having done my homework and listened to some other podcasts that you're on, like, this is, I really feel like you're following your heart and you're being true to yourself. And that is not easy. And I, you know, personally, I really respect you for going after that and having run a label, not for 20 years, but since 2011, coming up on, you know, 14. It is hard to stay in that one lane or that one genre for a while, and kind of, that's so much of your identity. And as music lovers, we want to explore new territory. So I really commend you for taking on the hard thing and being brave and striking out. And I will say, like, I did kind of poke my head into Reddit and some other places just to see. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what happened and what you did and why, and people with hurt feelings. And I think you probably knew a lot of that was coming. And I still, you've got to follow your heart and do what you want for yourself.
Yeah, I stay like as far away from Reddit as humanly possible. Like, yeah, of course. I'm sure there's some people that are like, what? But we started this thing, and then it got cloned, and then it got cloned, and then the clone got cloned, and then the clone of the clone is cloned.
Mm.
And then kind of by the time that I wanted to stop running it, it was just not the thing that I thought it was in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, the whole thing was moving in a very commercial. It's just not interesting to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't that it wasn't good. It was just not interesting anymore.
You know, tying into that, I I went and watched your 80 days of making your album, and I thought that was really cool. And I think this is honestly, I thought this was like a master class in launching a brand in my opinion. I know there was probably not
Thank
your
you.
feeling or how it was in actually doing it, but you I feel like you utilized all of the modern day tools and opportunities to connect with people and really let people in and show how hard and how scary and how weird and how not sure of yourself you might be one day, and then one day you're riding high and the next day it's like, what the fuck am I doing? I thought that was really,
Yeah,
really cool.
it's funny that you say that because there's even beats in there where I think it's the greatest beat ever made, and I didn't even use them. I was like, oh, 4 days later, I'm like, this is a piece of shit. But if you really like studied it, you see like even the delusion of in process is real. Like the highs and lows are real things that happen to everyone. And even now, I probably did like it was one of my goals. I have a mentor that I work with called Mike Monday, and it was one of my goals to like really break this fear of doing a rap track
Mm.
because I did it when I was a kid, and then I kind of did into it, and then I just felt like I was just not able to do it or something. I just felt like there's no way that I could do that. And then I probably made like 8 tracks, and there were so many bad ones. And then I eventually just said, okay, I can live with this one. You know what I mean? So it's a constant process. You can ask my wife. Sometimes I'm like miserable human being, and then like one day later I'll be like jumping out of my. I'm not a very good middle, even though it seems like I'm very mellow. I'm not a very good even keeled person about music. I get really high when I feel like it's going very well, and I get really low when I think the lowest music thing that can happen, and maybe someone can relate, is like when you're like, I finished this song, and then you go DJ it for the first time and it's crap. That's like the lowest that you can get. And while it's happening, while you're DJing, you're like smiling and being like, and you're like,
no, this is when I ain't it.
I gotta redo this whole thing.
I did notice that you talked about doing 75 hard, which for anybody that doesn't know what that is like you got to drink a gallon of water and exercise twice a day and read a book, and it's a pretty cool thing.
Brutal.
It's all about personal discipline. So was that sort of like part of the lead up to that as well?
Yeah. So I had done 75 hard, and actually I will say that I kind of injured myself even during 75 hard. I don't know if it's recommended.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people in my family thought I was turning psychotic. It is really unrelenting, 75 hard.
Right.
And I will tell you that the gallon of water is actually the hardest.
Yeah.
Not even the workouts. Huh. It's that gallon of water. So ridiculous.
Yeah, like you got to start right when you wake up, right? There's
just crank it right away. But that did show me. It showed me something. So in 75 Hard's defense, it showed me that anything can be done as long as you can commit to it. So the fastest I had been able to make an album was probably like 9 or 10 months, maybe a year. I don't know, just under a year, let's say. And so then I was like, 80 days. That's like insanity. And that includes the mix downs. Like, that's crazy. But I was just telling someone else this. If you actually decide that music is your job and what you're doing with your life, 80 days is long enough. It's easy. It's not easy, but it is plenty of time. It's just that people love to procrastinate and sit on a beat for 3 weeks and not do these, like, you have to work a certain way to do an album in 80 days. You have to make checklists and like do critical listening and just come into a track and be like, what are the 10 things I would change? And what are they specifically? Not make the bass better. like what I say is a non-specific comment would be make the bass better. The specific comment would be change the bass notes from half notes to quarter notes and stagger them, whatever, like specific note. And you really got to get good at that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm getting into the 80 days.
No, I love it. I think it's a great lesson for people. I think it's a great tool. As I was looking this up, I think it's called Parkinson's principle, which is like, if you set yourself, 80/20. Well, I guess it says Parkinson's principle is work expands to fill the time allotted for its completion. So it's like, if you're like, I have 2 hours to work on this thing, then you'll get it done, or you'll get a lot done. But if you say I have 2 weeks, then you'll probably take 2 weeks, which is why we all procrastinate and we turn our homework in the night before. And so you might as well just set yourself on deadline and go.
Yeah. And everything is really a practice. So I didn't do the 80-day practice and then I tried to get back into it. And then I literally just sat on 2 tracks for a month and found myself completely wrung out of that way of working. and then I had to be like, rethink of like, what did you do before, and then just, it's kind of like constantly throwing things away that
Mm.
you think are kind of cool but aren't really working, and just continue to creatively try a new drum kit, try a new pattern, change the vocal entirely, and you will see, like, as long as you save as, you're fine, right? You
Right.
have the old one. Maybe you go too far, and maybe you're like, oh my god, that was just way too beyond like what we should have done, but you still have version 7a
Yeah.
back here in your folder that you can jump back to. I don't know.
So I mean, I think the underlying theme is doing hard things and challenging yourself. And one of
Yeah.
the things that I heard you talk about is, you know, packing up and going to the UK and renting a studio to bring all
Yeah.
these, you know, hopeful features together. Again, that's a huge, just, I'm going to do it. We'll see how it shakes out.
And you know what? No, I had no one on the docket on day one. No one came over. It was terrifying.
I bet.
Like, I was almost, that was just like, you better turn this around. Like,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Well, I mean, you ended up with Flowdon, which is obviously, you know, legends.
You can make anything happen. It's just really, you got to buckle down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, just on that tangent, that I did house music for 20 years, but this year I grew more than the entire 20 years of doing house music, because I just keep pushing the whole thing, like, just push past where you think it's going to be safe, sing, go past the limit of what people want to hear from you. And maybe people might not like the result, but I'm definitely growing as a musician.
Is there like an underlying reason for that? Is there something going on deeper inside of you? Is it kind of getting older, or just like you want more, or you wanted to
Maybe.
try different
I don't
stuff?
know. When I was 16, I wanted to be in the Beastie Boys, and then I ended up making house music. Like, maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're not the same result.
I think that you're pulling it off. And again, like the way that you're utilizing, you know, your email list and really openly sharing with people to kind of like really invite them in and be part of this new adventure with you. Like that's, I really encourage people to give that a deeper look if they haven't tapped into what you're doing. Like it's really cool.
Yeah, I have a weekly newsletter, and initially, even my assistant was like, "You can't write an email to people every week. They're going to freak out. They're going to be like, 'You're killing me. I can't read this.'" And then I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Those are the people we need to get rid of. Actually want the people who want to talk to us." So I do write a newsletter every week that you can sign up for on my website, and I write whatever I'm doing that week. Whatever is going on is pretty much in that newsletter. And I didn't think I could do that newsletter either. I was like, how am I going to write about something that's impossible? And now I'm like on week 31 or something, and it's going fine. It's not that bad.
I mean, if I look at your, you know, your career, it doesn't seem like personal discipline has maybe been an issue, but it seems like that's been like the real turning point, is like setting yourself down and just doing whatever you commit to.
Yeah, I am good at that. Is something I can do. I've noticed over the years, like, I am able to just say, okay, now it's time for this to be finished, and finish it. Um, but I will say I wasn't always. I wasn't always pushing. I was always kind of trying to push, the limits of house, but I was never pushing like way out. And I'm not even pushing way out now. I'm just pushing myself. Like I'm not making like Aphex Twin songs or Autech or any like crazy experimental music, but just for me even to sing just is so unheard of if I had told myself that I was going to do that even 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, I know one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was Cannibal Strings. This is your, well, I guess it comes out right as we're recording it this week, but this is the first track that you've like really rapped on, right?
Yeah. It's not actually the first track because in high school I made a rap album,
Okay.
but that's definitely not on Spotify. Yeah. So this is just one of those things where you're like, how many ways can I not do this? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how many ways can I procrastinate so that I don't end up doing this? And I probably did a bunch of tracks. And I would say the first three, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then like 4 days later, I listened to it and be like, you can't release this. You haven't tried hard. Like you haven't done any work. I think that was one of my biggest realizations was some of these rappers are fucking geniuses.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's not that easy. Some of it is very straightforward type stuff, but there's so many factors: the cadence, the delivery, the writing. There is a lot of stuff going on in a good rap track that is way beyond what everyone's just like, oh, they're just rhyming, it's stupid, it's so easy. It's not that easy.
What is the song about? Cannibal Strings.
I don't really know. It's a kind of like in the lyrics I talk about selling Dirtybird and like going out on my own, but then there's just some fun lyrics, and then there's just some social commentary. Like it's not necessarily all directly on theme, but it does
Okay.
have a vibe. And I did think that it was definitely on my checklist. Like, hey, you can't do a rap track and literally not talk about Claude Von like you have to say something about some of this shit in the rap, or people are just going to be like, you're just trying to rap about nothing.
Yeah. I did get an early listen. I listened for that. I didn't quite like, like you said, I think having you said that makes a little bit more sense. So that's cool, man. I'm curious to see the reaction and do you think you'll ever perform it live, or will this be something you'll probably just DJ?
For now, I'll DJ it. I was thinking like it's interesting because I I sent this to just like a manager friend of mine, and he kind of blew my mind. He's like, "Oh, you could now if you can rap, you can just take beats. People can submit beats to you, and you can just be the feature." And I was like, "What? Are you kidding me? Like that's I can't even. I never even thought of that in a million years. I was always like, you got to do everything." And I never even considered that was even a thing. But I would say if I did more of like 5 tracks or like an album or something where then I would maybe turn it into a show or a part of my show. But I feel like just one, I'll get on the mic and like fill in the phrases, but I don't think I'm gonna pull up and leave the decks and like go out and
Yeah, you can be your own
I
hype
don't
man, right?
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm psychologically ready for that yet,
I mean,
but
that's
who
a
knows?
lot. Yeah.
It's like a whole other thing.
Yeah. I just got to see you play at Lightning in a Bottle. I was the stage manager for Thunder Stage, and I got to meet your wife and your
Oh,
kids.
that's
And
awesome,
we
right?
actually went out in front to give away these patches, and
Oh, right, the patch.
I was like, do you guys have earplugs? And they were like, well, I think your wife did, but your son didn't. He put in his Apple earpods. I was like, I'm a little fuzzy on this. Like, this is some serious sound out there. But
Yeah,
yeah, it was a
it's
lot
too
of fun to
loud.
give away the patches and see everybody like super hyped to get your patches. And it was great to meet your family. Like, that was really cool.
That's
And
awesome.
I have a video that came out with you. I think I forget which song it is. I think it makes sense for the album. It was the one that's like stay. Is it "Stay Together"?
Yeah.
Is that about your family?
No,
No. Okay.
I didn't even write the lyrics to that. That is all written by T. Zandos from London.
But it was a touching. I mean, it kind of fit. I guess it fit the moment. It was very like feel good, and it was really cool. You know, I guess, this game can be kind of a young person's game. It was really cool to see you out there with your family and like showcasing that and like really bringing that up and being like, that's cool for me. That's really exciting to see
Thank
somebody
you.
like show.
That
Yeah.
that is something that also creeps into my brain sometimes. I'm like, I can pretty much make music forever, but how long are people going to tolerate going to see me? It's like, I'm not 18,
Yeah.
so
I
who
think we're
knows?
still testing this. I mean, like Tiesto and Digweed and these guys are
Yeah,
still touring and doing it. And like, there is no reason, ageism is a real thing. Maybe an 18-year-old person doesn't want to, but I think if you're delivering, which I think you are, and pushing the boundaries, and I guess one commentary I had on the album is like, it's not just bass music. This is like
right.
funk and dub and reggae and just all these different vibes. Like, it seems like not only are you, pivoting, but you're really exploring a ton of really interesting musical territory,
That's
scratching your own itch.
Thank you. That's high praise because that's really important to me, and I really, really don't want to slot myself into being a dubstep DJ,
Yeah.
even though the marketplace kind of says you're a house DJ or a dubstep DJ in America.
Hmm.
Like, those are the
Yeah.
circuits that are on tour, or you're like a singer.
Yeah.
So I have to go into that dubstep circuit and not play dubstep, which sometimes people get very upset about. Like, I do play some dubstep and I play some hard ass tracks,
Yeah.
but that is not what I want you to get out of it in the end. I
Yeah.
want to do everything, and it can be a challenge because a lot of the way that things get marketed and the way that festivals are run, they also have to make their message very, very simple.
Hmm.
And so they're just like, here's this shit and here's this shit. And it's like, you
Yeah.
gotta, if you're not in this one, you're on this one. It's it's extremely hard to just break out and be kind of like a genre free, like a Fred again.
Yeah.
That's like such an anomaly.
Yeah.
But a
I mean, you
good,
were on the right stage for sure.
yeah.
Like, we had Taiko,
Yeah.
we had all sorts of Afrobeat stuff early in the day, and so
Well,
like, I mean,
that festival in particular is a special festival that understands
totally.
the nuances of genres, and they
Yeah.
always have. And that is not what I'm talking. I'm not talking about
No,
LIV.
I know. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
I'm just saying, like,
100%. No,
the
I get you.
industry in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think you're threading the needle. And I mean, I think most people don't want to hear 75 minutes or 90 minutes of 140.
Nobody,
And
some kid. No, there are
yeah,
some people that do.
yeah,
I've seen
no,
them.
but it doesn't hit as hard, right?
Right.
When you drop in a hip hop track or we go into this like dub reggae vibes for a minute, and then we come back to the heavy bass, all of a sudden it just tastes so much better. It lands so much
Yeah.
more fully, and it's like, oh, all right.
I like to drop in jungle and a funk record and like a dance hall record and like, yeah. And I even did that in house. I was like always
Hmm.
dropping in a drum and bass track into house sets, even back in like 2005. But I don't know. I don't know what the right path. I'm just doing whatever. That's what I say.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm here for it, man. I wanted to remark on the collab that you did with Up the Trees. Like, I mean, speaking of sort of that UK and you know, it's sort of halftime, but
Yeah. That was a great example of kind of making lemonade out of a situation that didn't work. So, like we were talking about how I went to London and I tried to schedule all these sessions. I was trying so hard to have a session with strategy and it just didn't come together. Like the trains were on strike that week and there was all this BS and he lives in Manchester. And so I had literally been talking to him for 4 months. And then I somehow started making a beat with Tyler. I don't even know what was going on. I somehow started making a beat with Of the Trees. And then I'm like, do you like MCs? And he's like, do I like MCs? Who are you talking about? And I'm like, well, this guy's strategy and I have been waiting to like put something together. And then it all just kind of like he flipped the beat into something totally different than what I gave him, and then he sent it back to strategy, and then strategy did something, and then I was like, "This is insane! Like this is the perfect kind of collab 360 weirdo scenario where everything just magically comes together, and it wasn't working, and nobody knew anything, and then all of a sudden, that was the biggest streaming track that either one of us put out in like the last few years." So that was cool. That was just a cool
yeah.
scenario that just came together correctly. And everybody on both of our camps was into it and everybody had a good attitude. A lot of times like someone's being slow or they're annoying manager or whatever, you don't know like what's going on, and that one was just easy.
Mm.
Just this That's
Yeah,
how
it's
that
nice
came
when
together,
everything kind
just in
of
case you
fits.
wanted to know.
I love it. No, I mean, that's what this is for. We want to hear the inside scoops. I saw, you know, obviously you got to play open up for him at Red
Right.
Rocks, which I think is a huge moment there. And like he played the track and you guys came out
Yeah,
there and
that was super
I mean that's
fun. That was a great night. Great energy. Like I said, like both of our whole teams like really got along and everybody's happy and it was just fun being out there and it was a great show.
I remember when you started, I think I saw you had booked Tyler of the Trees to play the camp out. And I think you had a couple, like I think you maybe had EPROM
Yeah.
and some people, and
Well,
I was
we
like,
had a whole
oh,
alternative
okay, like
stage that had all kinds of stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So you had kind of already been a fan of Tyler's and or of the Trees and known about his music.
Yeah. So every year, I mean, you could kind of see my secret passion going on since the
Hmm.
very beginning of Camp Out. In 2015, I always had the Bass Lodge, which was the other stage that went all the way from Eric B. and Rakim to Souls of Mischief to Janae Aiko, Break-Ins, um, Of the Trees, EPROM, Shield, Goldie, Adam F, like everything, like breaks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was always into that stuff. And I was always into kind of a wide swath of that stuff. So that kind of was where it started. My first set for playing Barclay Crenshaw was the first camp out, and I
Mm.
didn't even have music out. I just said I'm going to put together some crazy ass set of all this stuff that I think is cool.
You know, we kind of just hit on LIB and how they're pushing that too. I mean, that's sort of the trick, right? You have this relatively insular crowd that's just there for the house, and then you get them kind of their minds wide open and having fun, and all of a sudden they're well, I didn't realize I like this, but I do, you
Yeah,
know.
the house is the hook.
And I saw on some of the videos and LIB, you have these dancers come
Yeah,
out, which I love. I thought they were
Thank you.
phenomenal. I think at Red Rocks you had maybe a few more people dancing on stage, but like it takes it a level up. Are these just homies from the Bay or people that you've just
No, what they're so at Camp Out and Camp In, we had what was called Claude's Cabin and Claude's Cove at Camp In. And that's a third stage where we only do like experimental theater, drag queen shows, beatbox competitions, pie eating contests. And then there was always this one
love it?
thing that this guy Greens created called Lap Dance for Your Life. And it's basically musical chairs where the person who doesn't get a seat has to try to lap dance their way back into the chairs. So they'll pick a person and then they'll lap dance them, and then that person has to lap dance, and then the audience votes who keeps the chair, and then it goes all the way down to a winner. And it's just one of my favorite things ever. And all the dancers that are on my tour are from Camp Out. And
Oh
Greens performed
wow.
at every single Camp Out and every single Camp In. And he's kind of like running that whole department. And that's just, they're just from, I know them from our shows and how great they
Love
are and
that.
how fun they can make it. And like they just had the right energy, and their family was also at LIB. So kind of like they were trying to show out a little bit. So they were really like, Charlie was doing triple splits and flips and stuff. And I was like, it was pretty great.
Yeah, they were throwing down. Um, it was really funny because they were really going at it, like you were saying. And I think it might have been Charlie. He sort of seemed like the lead guy of the group. He came off and they were all wearing your merch and your designs, and he was like, "Whose idea is it to have
Yeah,
sweaters?"
I know.
And he
They're
was
all
just
mad at me.
soaked, man.
The outfits are just so baggy and hot, and even my outfit is baggy
Yeah.
and hot and like uncomfortable in the summer, and we still haven't figured out how to fix that.
I think you need some athleisure
Yeah,
wear, some jerseys. Yeah. Oh man, that was fun. Yeah. I mean, it felt like you got a great reaction, and that at least for LIB, like that was really hitting. So do you feel like these sets up for this rollout of the album and this tour, have they been landing? You feel like people
yeah.
now have listened to the album and kind of understand a little bit more what's
I think
happening?
that the tour has been highly successful, and anybody who came to the shows was really psyched, and I've seen it like in their
Hmm.
faces and talked to everybody before and after the shows. I will say that doing a tour where you just change your name and start from scratch is nerve
Yeah.
wracking. And also, you got to realize like cities that you just went to twice a year that are like automatic sellouts are projects now. Like, oh,
Mhm.
we're at like 24% sold and we have like 10 days left. Like, you got to start actually selling tickets, is like a whole nother thing. It's like there's no end. There's
Yeah.
no end. But touring is like a whole other interview that I could get so deep into. But touring is no joke. And never take it for granted, because I will
Yeah.
tell you that I could pretty much go into any city as Claude Von Stroke in America, just walk into a room and it would be full. And I don't think I realized that until I started this.
Hmm.
I was like, oh yeah, wow. I really had a good solid fan base going, and this one is harder, and we still do really well, but we work like very hard to get that to happen. And it's just an awareness thing, and it takes, I'll say another note to upcoming producers. Even after you release your big album and your big tentpole thing comes out, it's going to be a year. Like, nobody knows that anything happens. It takes a long time to just keep saying, this is out. I am an artist. This is what it is. This is what we do. You just can't expect anyone to know what you're doing for minimum 1 year.
Yeah, I think I say that as well, is you have to be your biggest cheerleader, and you really have to, like you said, I think you have to beat the drum. And there's whatever 8 billion people on this planet, and we're all consumed with our own bullshit in our own head and our own, you know, family stuff or work or whatever. And so it does, even though we're all on social media, what it takes a lot for something to come through. I totally agree with what you're saying. So I think the lesson is like really push hard. Like you're probably going to be sick of yourself by the time it
Yeah.
starts to kind of click. And I think some some artists, like it's like this battle of the ego and feeling like, am I a narcissist? It kind of comes with the job, and you kind of have to be, you know, maybe not relentless, and you don't want to, you know, just be pushy, but you know, it
You
takes
do
a
have to
lot.
be relentless.
Yeah.
Even when you make it. The greatest advice I ever got was from Derek Carter, one of the greatest house DJs of all time. He said, you got to work really hard, and then you got to work even harder. And then when you made it, that's when you start working. It's like so brutal, but it's so true.
Yeah, I think what you said about touring, like I like to say this because I think some of the, you know, general population that just buy tickets and go to shows, like people don't realize like how taxing on your body and your soul and your mind it is. And if an artist maybe doesn't give you the energy that you're looking for, if you're at a meet and greet or you just happen to say hi to them or they just got finished playing, like give them some leeway, give them some understanding, because they've been in a plane or they've been in a bus or a cargo van or whatever for 10 hours to get to play that show. And it's
Yeah.
a lot. It's a lot of energy, and it can be, your body can
I do
really
try to
hurt by
make
the
a
end of
really
it.
concerted effort to be kind and say hi to people and take photos. But we do have a like internal joke that we're not even getting hired to play shows, we're getting hired to travel. Like, of course you want to play the
Yeah.
show. The part that you're getting paid for is to leave your house and like do all this shit
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Like, of
Sit in a
course, if we
plane.
could teleport, we would just do it for free.
Yeah. Yeah. With the prices of travel now, right? Well, what are you hoping for in the, you know, near to long term sort of future of the project? Where what would be something that you would, you know, kind of your
I
marker for success, or
don't
what you're
know.
hoping to make happen?
I would like to be thought of as more of a music producer than
Hmm.
a house DJ, dubstep DJ. I would like to be kind of thought of like this person makes music, electronic music, and maybe something could come out of that. I have no idea. Like, I don't even know. I'm just thinking, like,
Yeah. So like if you were looking at somebody maybe like a
yeah.
Pharrell or somebody like that, right? Like,
But
yeah,
at the same time, I don't want to go and
maybe.
make tons of beats for other people either. Like, I think I have constructed
Hmm.
for me an incredible system of nobody tells me anything. I literally just think of everything myself and then I put it out. And besides, maybe I'm terrible at TikTok, everything else is going pretty good. Like, I don't know.
Hmm.
Like, isn't the dream to just think of shit and do it? I don't know. Like, nobody tells me to change all the synthesizer sounds to banjos, and nobody comes and says, "Oh, you need to redo this whole thing on the top," and because the executive said that people in Alabama don't like that part. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just make
Right.
songs, and I kind of think that's awesome.
Yeah. So it sounds like freedom and like freedom of creative expression and freedom of just doing what you feel is important to
Yeah,
yourself.
and just realizing that I can't control. One of the things is I just the biggest thing is realizing that I can't control the music once it leaves my hands. Really, it's just up to the people. Really, it's like I'm just gonna make it, and then whatever happens after that is kind of, yes, you can juice it and maybe run some ads or whatever you're gonna do, but it in the end, it's just gonna be whether people want to hear it or they don't want to hear it. And it's not really on
Mhm.
you as long as you did your best and are at like a minimal level of like good shit. I think that that's all you can really do. It's probably not true. You could be amazing at socials and blow up a totally different way, but that's not interesting to me.
I wanted to ask you about your new company or relatively new company, Imperial Dust, and you have a new plugin that you've created called Nasty Channel. And will you tell me the story of how that came together?
Yeah, so 100 years ago, I made a track with EPROM when I lived in Venice, and he, I only knew like house music production, which is basically nothing. I don't know anything. Like I will say like the high end drum and bass music producers know so much more than the house music producers, just on a production stand, because they have
Mm,
to, just because of the level that is
yeah.
required to stick out in that specific genre. So I got off on a tangent. He just came in and showed me something super simple that I never even thought of, which is just put the erosion plugin on an 808 and it will fizz out the top end. And I was like, well, that's an interesting concept of like adding a sound. And then, so what if you made it so you could add a sound that gave it a sound at top, but then you also added controls afterwards so that you could filter it and distort it so that they kind of crunch together. This is all just stuff in my brain. I've been trying to think of like nasty ways to make nasty bass sounds since like I was a little kid. And I don't know. So I made all these super gnarly top end sounds that are like crackling. Right, it's all kind of like versions of white noise, like feedback from my synth, crackling white noise through a pedal, like just you know. And then I made them presets that you can put on bass or drums. I didn't even realize how cool it would be on old drum loops. And
Mm,
immediately the sounds just started like popping out of the mix, and then the distortion circuit at the end really blows it up. And then I made it with someone, but I can't say who that is because they it's like a whatever. But then they chose to also throw in a little like Easter egg, which is let's put some waveforms as the sound. So you can also like, somebody was saying they use it to make risers because you can just automate like a sine wave going, and it's just, you can get really weird with it really fast, and it's not hard to use. It's just a stupid like 6 knobs. It's very simple, and you can get it in 30 seconds what it's doing. And it's kind of it's a task specific, like it's not a Swiss Army knife that you use on everything. It's this is a dull ass sound, but I like the sound. How can I fizz this sound up or like nastify it? And that's basically what it is. I mean, life is weird, right? So you tell, I run into another music nerd. In general, I ran into another music nerd. They kind of understood what I was saying, and they just made it. And then it obviously had to get reworked and like okay, but this, and then the artwork has to get done and all the stuff has to happen. But I didn't think that we would ever make a plugin, to be honest. I just thought this was a cool idea for a plugin. And then somehow I got an
Yeah.
opportunity.
So you do have plans to do any more?
I don't
You think you'll
know.
do
I
another one?
think probably the next, yeah, I think so. But I think the next few things that are coming out on that site will be more sample packs. They're just a little bit easier to manage. This is a lot of hard work. Like, I'm not saying that I don't want to do hard work,
Yeah.
but we kind of noticed that people, the plug-in market is not as big as just people slotting in samples. So like nobody actually wants to
Yeah.
work. They just want the finished product.
I will say I've with Gravitas, we started Gravitas Create, and we did some sample packs, and then we, as a way to kind of get into, you know, having additional ways for people to play with the sounds, we started selling stems and samples. And I saw with your new tune that on your website you're saying, hey, you can also
Yeah.
buy this and pay what you want. So I think that's a brilliant model, right? Like when we've done remix contests, and I think, oh, someone sat with these stems and played with this song for 3 5 days or 2 weeks and really worked hard. Like they're never going to forget that song. They're never going to forget that artist. And they're really, that's, you know, when you're talking about social media engagement, you can't buy that. That's amazing that someone would spend that much time with your music and your sounds to
Yeah, so that's
really dig in.
something else that I learned from running Dirtybird for so long, and also then doing a album on another label that wasn't mine, is actually the most important thing is just owning your own music, and then you can just do whatever you want. So let's say I sign this record to another label, I could never give away the stems and not charge for it and sell a t-shirt with the logo. Like, it's, you lose things by not getting a big machine, but you also gain things by being able to be part of the community and just spread your stuff more into the ether. I don't know how to explain it, but if
Yeah.
you own your stuff, you can pretty much do whatever you want, which is very freeing, but also you lose a little bit of the machine, of like the promotion machine.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, is like having, you know, released on labels and having run a label. I think I heard you say somewhere like, you know, I'm not sure that, you know, and I guess we should define what a label is, but like labels are really absolutely necessary these days. And then I also heard you kind of remark that you want to go with the hustler, the person that really believes in you and that's up and coming and wants to really work
Yeah,
hard because they believe in your project. And
I pretty much will always go that route, but I will. I this is a loaded question because it's a label is no longer relevant if everyone was great at everything. So if you're really good at socials and promoting yourself, you definitely don't need to be on a label. But some people definitely need to be on a label. Does that make sense? Like, it's just that, what personality are you? Do you need so tons of help? Do you not know how to do anything? You need a label. If you're like a real go-getter and you're like out there in the streets and you're pushing it and going, making friends, meeting everyone, posting all the time, then you don't need a label.
I think there's a couple of things too to add to that. Would be like, it's, I think when you're early on, even if you are doing all of those things, right, you still want to kind of grow your reach and grow your audience. Then it's important to like, or you can learn from a label. You can learn about
Yes.
their process, about the way they do things, and that's a great way to like kind of absorb some of their power. And I think what we've done with Gravitas is really help people early on, and then I see them go on and be successful, and I'm like, oh yeah, look, they're doing, you know, not taking all the credit, but oh, like we helped them learn some of those things. And time management and setting dates and how you do a rollout. And
That's a really good point. Yeah, you almost have to be a production assistant on a movie to know how a movie works. It's kind of like the same theory. So you should see how a label would do a track or two or three, and then be like, oh, this is how you do everything. Da, 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 da. You do a checklist.
yeah, my advice is like go work with a label and then do a self-release. Go work with a different label and then do a self-release. And then you start to like actually really learn, learn and then practice, learn and then practice.
I'm not going to say it's more important than the label, but it could be more important than the label, is to collaborate with another artist that has a slightly different fan base than yours, or is a little bit outside of the wheelhouse of yours. Like, so like that Of the Trees strategy collab was kind of a perfect storm, because I'm trying to rebrand. I'm trying to do stuff with MCs. I'm trying to do bass, and I kind of get everything to happen because it's a collab. To where if I was the MC on that track, I produced the whole track, I don't think even half the amount of people would have heard it.
Well, yeah, and we're right at an hour. So, man, thank you so much for all of the information and sharing. I'm really excited to see what's coming up next for you. And congrats on the plug-in. Congrats on the new tune, Cannibal Strings. Congrats on
Thank
the
you.
album, Open Channel.
You're making me sound like I'm doing stuff.
Yeah, if you're next time you're in,
sometimes
you
I
are,
don't think I'm
man.
doing
You
anything,
are.
but now what you just said that all together, I was like, oh, maybe I am doing stuff.
Oh, man. Yes, brother. We'll keep on pushing hard. I appreciate you. And thanks so much for coming on the podcast.